If you've been wondering if Amber Electric is a good choice for you, well, I've done all the hard work. In the next few minutes, we're going to be covering the good, the bad and the ugly, and my own personal experience over this last 3 months. So I've been using the Amber Electric app now for 3 months. I've had 3 separate bills. One started in winter, we're into the second month of spring, and I've been told that the most expensive times are going to be winter and summer when we're most energy intensive. So we're probably in the dip at the moment where we're going to have the least feed in and the least expense as well. But I'm going to share with you my bills in a minute to show you what the average feed in and payment cost. So one of the biggest questions people ask me is Amber worth it? Are you going to make heaps of money on it? Is it always going to be an ability to sell your energy at $20 or more? Now, in reality, I don't know the full aspect of this because I haven't really had it through the most peak times. However, if I look at the difference between Amber and say a general retailer, you're probably going to come out slightly in front if you are one to enjoy looking at your energy use and managing it well. Now I say this because if I was to stay on my previous provider, I had a pretty flat rate of exporting at 5 cents per kilowatt hour. But I could do that at any time through the day. I could do that even when there's a negative feed in into the grid, they'd still pay me 5 cents per energy. And looking at previous bills, I actually used to export more energy, even without having a battery in the past, because I had so much excessive solar that I wasn't storing it, and I'd get about $65 a month in credits returned to me. And what I've found with Amber is that I've actually been getting the same amount of credits back for my energy, but I've been exporting maybe 1/5 of the amount of energy, but I've been able to export it at a peak time, and that's usually out of my battery. Now, that's one of these things is like, how much energy do you use per day? How much can you use your solar? How much can you store so that you can use it through the night? For me, I've always got excess. I've always got maybe 10 to 15 kilowatt hours in the battery that I'm not going to be able to use overnight, and I can export that every evening. And most often, I think my average feed-in tariff's been about 19 cents per kilowatt hour, but it can be as high as I've exported it at $22, and I've also been able to export it at 1 cent. And it really just depends on what the general usage is in your area as to what sort of feed-in tariff you're getting. But if you're purely just chasing dollars, you may have to do the maths for yourself and really understand what your usage is, what sort of size battery you've got, also what export limit you've got. I'm limited to 5 kilowatt hours here, and I'd love to have 10, but I can't feed it in that quickly, unfortunately, to make use of it. And so that's why I chose a battery the size of 24 kilowatt hours, because I knew that peak period lasts maybe 2 hours. If I can only export at 5 kilowatt hours, I can't really empty my battery if it was a 40 or 50 kilowatt hour battery. That we go into a bit of detail in terms of a bill summary, and we're going to look at this is my last month's bill and see sort of what averages we're dealing with there in terms of feed-ins and costs and all the detail. So as an average, our average feed-in tariff this week has been 25 cents a kilowatt hour. You're not going to get that anywhere else. There's no provider that's going to do that. It saved me $60 this last week, and the week before $48. And I've made about $20 this week, and that's about $56 this month. To give you an idea of what you need to make to break even, your supply charge is close to $2, it's about $1.90. You're paying $25 a month. You need to be making about $75 a month to break even on the cost of having energy supplied to your house with Amber. That includes the $25 Amber subscription, plus it includes your daily supply charge. So what you've all been waiting for is looking at an energy bill. I'm going to show you what that looks like right now. As I said, Amber's really transparent. They're really good with talking you through every bit of what you're spending with them. And you can see everything from usage costs, the cost of supply, everything. And as you can see with my bills the last 3 months, is I've had a $245 credit, which is pretty cool. The really cool thing is that it seems to be going up as we're getting hotter. So this would be great to do another video in a few months' time in the middle of summer when everyone's got their air cons on and power's at a premium to see what we can export at. So let's look at the most recent bill. I actually haven't looked at this one just yet. This is from November to December. We've got a credit there of minus $89, which is pretty awesome if you ask me. And the really neat thing is you can ask to have this credit put in your bank account at any point in time through the app, which is really great. So here's a simple part of my bill. You can see here, it cost me $85 to run my electricity for the month, but I had $154 of credit come in, which was almost a negative $90 bill. Here we go. This is the interesting part where we start looking at the usage and the supply charges. As you can see, as an average, I use 25 kilowatts for an entire month of energy. Now that's how effective your battery can get when you have solar and a battery. It's less than a kilowatt a day of energy. You could do that on a bicycle if you really needed to. And the cost of that was 11 cents a kilowatt hour. That's phenomenal. So what that usually tells me is that if I've been buying at that rate, it's been buying energy, but probably in the off-peak period. And this is what I found during winter. A really great thing is if you buy energy through the middle of the night or at a really high solar time, you can fill your battery up and then you save heaps of money later on when you're not having to buy it back at an exorbitant price through a peak time. As we see here, for 30 days, the supply charge was $1.70. That cost me about 50 bucks, and the Amber fee for that time was $22. So as I said before, about that $75 mark is about what you need to be essentially making back to make sure that you cover your costs and have a $0 bill. And as you can see here, my solar exports were a little bit down, must have been using a lot of that energy, but they were $54. And the amount that I exported was 280 kilowatt hours, and I was getting about 19 cents per kilowatt hour. So this is where you can start to do the maths and understand for you, all right, how much could I export? And if I could export at those peak times, what's the average feed-in tariff I'm gonna get? And for me, that's not bad. But as I said before, if we compare this to maybe another provider, I might have even been able to get a little bit more export cost, but I was just exporting a whole lot more at a much lower feed-in tariff. So it's worth doing the maths on. We've got a bit of credit here as well, thanks to the Amber referral. Now, this is something that I'll put a code here. If you use this code, I save $10 a month, and so do you. So you get about $120 back on your bills over the course of the year. Feel free to use that if you'd like to. It's definitely something that if you then pass it on to someone else, you keep benefiting, and I think it's a great model that Amber uses. Now here's the usage fees. Obviously my cost was really, really low this month in imports, so I'm not paying a huge amount for them, but there's different market charges and energy charges and hedging and different things that are factored in here. It's not a huge amount, but it's definitely important that you're aware of what's going on. Is my battery going to work with the Amber app? And most of the time, if you've got a reputable brand, it will. And what I've found just listening to a lot of the forums is that the higher end batteries seem to integrate better with the Amber app in terms of the speed that the Smartshift can send messages to the battery and act on it, as well as the reliability with the connection. Now that being said, if you are on the forums, you will see obviously the horror stories where people's app isn't linking up, they're having trouble getting onto it, it's discharging at the wrong time, or it's not sending energy to the grid for a return quick enough, and they miss that opportunity. But with the Sigenergy unit, I haven't had any problems. The starting process was super easy. Literally got online, within 4 or 5 days, I was linked up, app was working, and it wasn't a problem. I think the Tesla seems to be quite similar. I can't speak for all the others, but what I have found on the forums is that you almost get what you pay for in terms of those premium models. And if you really want to maximize your Amber app, it does seem to be that if you've got the higher end models that have a lot of the tech, the Smartshift integrates better with that in terms of how quickly it can enact the commands that Smartshift's offering. So a classic example is we had someone on the forum the other day talking about how there was a price peak of several dollars, but it lasted for about 5 minutes. And now, of course, if you can discharge your battery at a high rate at that time, you can make a fair bit of money off it. But if you miss it by 5 minutes, either it drops down or it could even be a negative tariff. And we've seen in the past where they miss it, but then it discharges and they actually end up paying money for the energy they're sending off. So it's something to consider that if you are looking at a battery and then moving to Amber, consider what sort of model you want, and you need to then price that up in terms of, is it worth paying the premium to make a better return on Amber, or do you start with a lower cost and you're not expecting to have as high a return with the app? The other thing to consider with your choice of battery and the Amber app is the ability to curtail your solar. Now, what has been great that I've found in terms of the way it's integrated with my battery is that, as I was mentioning before, at a peak point when there's a lot of solar in the grid or a lot of wind energy in the grid, the feed-in tariff will actually go negative. So if you were to just be sending energy out from your excess, you filled your battery up and you've got excess solar, it's just still sending out. If you were to sell it into the wholesale market during that time, you might be paying as much as 4 or 5 cents a kilowatt hour back to the wholesaler for the energy you're exporting, which is obviously not what you want to do. Thankfully, my system, the way Smartshift and Amber is linked up with mine, is that if I fill my battery up and I've got excess of solar, it will actually stop any exports. It won't allow that solar to export. It will continue to power my home if I use it, but it won't send it back to the grid at a loss to me, which I think is a great feature. And I've seen that almost every day this spring. By about lunchtime, my battery is completely filled up. There's still plenty of solar. It will keep powering my home as much as I need, but it doesn't send it off and cause me to lose money. A lot of people ask about how it's set up. For me, I had a great experience, and I know this isn't the case for all because I have heard some reviews from people that Amber's customer service is a bit light on. It's hard to get in contact with them, and if you do get in contact with them, it's hard to get a response. For me, I've had no glitches. I haven't really needed to contact them at all. The only interaction I had with them was right at the beginning, before I had my battery installed. I had a customer service rep reach out to me just to see if I had any questions about it. But literally, once that was the case, I had an email that they'd sent me previously because I'd expressed interest, and I just signed up there, and then zero glitches, zero issues, smooth sailing for me. I'm sure there's not going to be great stories for everyone, but for me, and I'm hoping the majority of people, they found it really, really seamless. So let me show you how Smartshift works, because I think this is a really cool feature they've got going. Now, when you come in here, if you click on devices, you can go across to plan, and this gives you an idea of what your solar's doing and what the market's doing and what Smartshift is planning on doing. Now, today it looks like a pretty boring day. I'm gonna have a full battery. It's just gonna sit there full pretty much all day until I use it. And then tonight, it's looking like there's a spike and it's gonna try and dump as much as it can. It's pretty simple really, like charge it up, sell when the price is high. Now, this is the feature that everyone wants, which is controlling their battery. And you have 4 options here. You can charge it up from the grid, you can send it back to the grid, you can maintain your battery level. So let's say you wanted to keep it 100%. If your solar's not keeping up, the grid will feed back in to keep your battery 100% charged. And that might be a good thing if you know that there's gonna be a blackout coming or something's gonna happen where you're gonna need that energy later on. And then you can consume only the battery energy. And that's a great tool. I've found sometimes Smartshift all of a sudden wants to start importing energy at a weird time. If you're like, hold on, stop that, you can hit this button and you only use what you've got and the solar will keep charging your battery. You can go into each of these and determine the time. So if you wanted to do it for 30, 60, 90 or 120 minutes, you have complete control over that as well. It's a pretty simple to use app. Not many people are gonna have any issues with it. And if you don't want to ever look at it and you're not really nerding out on the solar stuff like I am, you can do that too. You can just literally set and forget and leave it, and it does everything in the background. So I think the long and the short of my experience with Amber has been overall positive. It's been one that I've enjoyed it. I really enjoy looking for those price spikes. If Smartshift hasn't kicked in yet, I'll just go in and launch it. It's really exciting to see money coming back on your investment. And if my calculations are correct and we're seeing energy continue to increase at the rate we're seeing it increase, this is going to become more and more lucrative. I think the only caveat to that is if we see everyone get batteries, it might be a bit like the old days where solar feed-ins were like 40, 50 cents a kilowatt hour, and now it's dropped down. So it might be one of those things, and you've got to get in quick to really appreciate it and get the most out of it. But at the end of the day, you do save a huge amount of money, let alone just not exporting, but able to manage your battery on your own, use it when you need to, and if you do have excess, you can send it off when you want. I think that's been the really good thing. I've always been a little bit concerned about other VPPs, whether they drop your battery just when you need it and then you have to buy it back later at a more expensive price, where this you have complete control, which is really great. So as a short summary, yeah, really like the product. I'm quite happy with it. I think, as I mentioned before, whether you're better off or not, you're probably slightly better off, but it really does depend on individual circumstances of what you use with your solar, how much battery energy you need, what your sort of export rates are there any dynamic tariffs and things like that in your area. So it's worth doing your research, look at your averages if you've got the ability to. But if you are a real fan of having control over your energy and you want to work the market, it's really exciting. I really enjoy it, and there's a great community out there on Facebook that you can link in with, and they can give you tips and tricks and all sorts of things that make it an even more enjoyable experience. As I said, if you do want to sign up with Amber, I'll link that referral link below, and you're more than welcome to use that to save $10 a month for the first year. It almost wipes out half the Amber fee, so it's pretty cool doing that. Anyway, it's been a pleasure. We're going to do a few more battery videos in the future looking at usage over summer, as well as my SigenStor Sigenergy 24 kilowatt hour review as well. Thanks.